Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents I Love You But I Don't Trust You, the complete guide to restoring trust in your relationship. By Mira Kirshenbaum. Narrated by Emily Durante. Part 1. You can restore trust in your relationships. 1. Finding your way back to each other. I know. You feel so hurt, so scared, so angry. There's nothing worse than when someone betrays you and you feel you can't trust them. You can't imagine it's possible that you would ever trust that person again, and at this moment you may not even want to try. And yet, hope is a stubborn thing. Somewhere deep inside you, you sense a spark of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, the terrible mistrust you feel isn't the end of the relationship. Maybe trust can be restored. Maybe the relationship can heal. Then again, maybe you're afraid that hope doesn't make sense right now. I understand. I felt all this myself, and so have millions of other people who've been through this. Here's what Heather told me. Heather's story. When she got the first hint of what Chris had done, Heather was immediately swamped by those bitter, dizzy feelings of suspicion we all know so well. It's like when an earthquake starts. Anything is possible, none of it good. In a kind of manic, dread-filled daze, Heather searched through Chris's computer and checkbook. When she finally found the awful confirmation of her suspicions, she was so angry she couldn't stop shaking. She was glad he wasn't around because at that point she truly felt like killing him. It was as if Chris wasn't her husband at all anymore. He was the man who'd killed her husband. This loathsome imposter certainly wasn't the man she'd married. He was a clueless, selfish jerk. As Heather waited for Chris to come home, the wild heat of her anger brought her to one clear decision. And so within minutes of his walking in the door, she'd thrown him out of the house, his clothes, his laptop, his iPhone, and then him. Now you can go sleep in a motel and think of some more people you can screw over, you bastard, she yelled and slammed the front door so hard a family picture fell off the wall. Chris pounded on the door, saying he wanted to explain, that he hadn't meant to hurt her, how he was sorry. But Heather's screaming terrified him so much that he decided he'd best leave, and off he drove. As she watched the red taillights of his car disappear down the street, she thought this was the saddest sight she'd ever seen. Friends tried to help. Heather sat there as dusk turned into night. Her brain was racing, spinning dark scenarios, churning up clouds of pain that made clear thought impossible. There was a tightness in her chest, a lump in her throat. She was caught in a tug-of-war between rage and grief. It suddenly hit her. I'll never sleep again. How would she ever regain her peace of mind? If this could happen, anything could happen. Would the rest of her life be like being in an abusive relationship where you're always waiting for the next blow to fall, the next betrayal, the next disappointment? Part of Heather wanted to get as far away from it all as she could, and that just made her feel more trapped, because she couldn't get away. Not today, anyway. Not with her kids, her job, her life. The sadness of it all hit her, and she started crying. Heather called her 3 best friends, and within an hour they were all there. As each one arrived, Heather repeated the whole story of what Chris had done, and how she'd found out about it, and how mad she was, and how her life was ruined. Finally, they all settled in to talk about what Heather should do. Good, they all agreed. You threw him out. He deserved it. But what next? What next? That was the question hanging in the air. Mary said, "Look, you can't trust him, right? How can you trust him after what he did? He broke your trust into 1,000 pieces. Trusting him again would just be stupid. It's all over." "Yeah," Gail said. "I mean, this is about who you are. If you let him back, he's going to think in the end he can get away with hurting you. You can't let yourself be a doormat." Nicole hadn't yet spoken, but Heather was starting to get the picture. Her friends wanted to see her as a strong heroine. They wanted her to show them that a woman wouldn't take crap from a guy. If she didn't take Chris back, their husbands would be that much more scared of betraying them. Heather was heartbroken at the thought that she'd suddenly lost everything, and she started to cry again. I loved him so much, and now I can't ever trust him again, and I've lost everything. It's over forever. There was a long silence, and then Nicole finally spoke. Oh, sweetie, I know how awful this is for you. I mean, Chris, for God's sake. Who'd have thought he'd do something like this? And you've counted on him for everything, she said, taking Heather's hand. I know you feel he's destroyed your world. You want to kill him. We all do. But... And Nicole took a deep sigh. All this it's over forever talk? I just don't know. Yeah, I know it feels like everything's smashed into a million pieces. How can you ever trust him again? But you're saying, oh, now I found out that Chris is really this evil man. But what if he's not an evil man? I know he loves you. Nicole squeezed Heather's hand for emphasis. What if he's just a big fat idiot who made this horrible, stupid mistake? What if he's really sorry and would do anything to get you back? I don't want him back, Heather said. You don't want him back because you think you can never trust him again, and maybe that's true. I can't promise it's not true. But you still love each other, and, more important than that, you guys had a really good relationship. For a very long time, too, Mary chimed in. Yeah, Nicole said. So after you've made him suffer for a while and scared the crap out of him... Definitely let him know you've seen a lawyer, Gail said. Yeah, and scared the crap out of him. Why don't you take him back and see if you can get to the point where you can ever trust him again? I just don't think, Heather started, but Nicole interrupted her. Nicole's story. It can happen. I've seen it. Nicole paused. And I've lived it. All eyes were on Nicole now. A year after Dave and I were married, I found out that he'd cheated on me with an old girlfriend about 10 days before our wedding. I mean, this isn't what happened with you and Chris, but still, a betrayal is a betrayal. I was so mad and humiliated. Of course I know how you feel. I totally felt the same way. But, I don't know. Something told me not to flush this relationship down the toilet. And it was hard, really hard. I didn't trust him. My body didn't trust him. But I decided to give it a shot. I'm sure we made every mistake in the book trying to heal things. Nicole squeezed Heather's hand again. But we did heal things. That was 8 years ago, and we have 2 beautiful kids, and Dave is a great guy, and I love him, and we have a good life, and I'm so glad I hung in there. If I hadn't, I think I would have regretted it forever. Do you trust him now? Heather asked intensely. Do I trust him? Nicole stared into the far distance. Dave is not a perfect person. Can I say he'll never ever do anything at all to disappoint me or hurt me ever again? I don't know. I do know that I've hurt him many times. Nicole leaned forward. People hurt each other. The more you love someone, the easier it is to get hurt. But do I trust Dave now? I do. I trust him with my life. I can sleep at night, and during the day I'm at peace. And about you? Nicole looked back at Heather and said, I'm just saying broken trust can heal. If deep down Chris is basically a good guy, and I think he is, and you have a good relationship and you love each other, and I know you do, well, I think you should give it another chance. I don't know, Gail said. I think Nicole's right, Mary said. So what are you going to do? Nicole asked Heather. I don't know. Who do you identify with in this story? At different times in my life, I've identified with each of the women in the story. I've been in Heather's position, hurt, scared, confused, blindly struggling to do whatever I could to protect myself. I've been in Gail's position, cynical, skeptical, prickly. I've been like Mary, wavering and confused. But now I'm in Nicole's position. It's kind of surprising, actually. I would have thought that the more I saw of life, the more mistrustful I'd become. Life is supposed to make you tough and suspicious, right? But I've seen so much in my life and work that's pointed me toward the wonderful possibilities for restoring trust. Many of us have been in Heather's shoes. Maybe it came on all at once, a shocking discovery that blasted the foundations of trust. Or maybe it crept in slowly, small acts and words that ate away at you, eroding the trust between you until you began to doubt everything you once wholeheartedly believed to be true. Either way, we've had the sickening sensation of feeling the worm of mistrust gnaw at our hearts. And once we're filled with suspicion and doubt, what do? Scold? Leave? Try to ignore the problem? Yell and scream? Most people in this situation report living in a state of pain and confusion. Our world has become a nightmare. We don't know what to do or where to turn. The person we perhaps care about most has become our biggest threat. But still, Nicole's got it exactly right. Broken trust can heal more often, more completely than most of us have ever thought. And I'll go even further than Nicole. Broken trust can heal more quickly than most of us have thought too. And it's worth it, because whoever coined the expression, "the broken places are stronger where they heal," is absolutely right when it comes to trust. When bad things happen to good relationships, we no longer have to choose between a painful breakup and the pain of staying in a broken relationship. We can have our old relationship back, but made new. Is this really possible? Oh yeah, I've seen it over and over in my work, and in my own life, too. My story. If you're dealing with betrayal, you're not alone. Trust issues plague people today the way fleas plague country dogs. They've plagued me, too. I got married during my senior year of college when I was 20. There were many reasons for our hitching up so young, but one big reason was that he made me feel safe, and I thought he was a really good guy. And it turned out that he was a good guy. But he wasn't perfect. Something happened several years later that seemed to destroy the trust I'd thought we had. My husband confessed to me that he was involved with another woman. He told me that they hadn't had any physical relationship, although he did admit being attracted to her. He called it an emotional affair of some sort. All I knew was that my heart was broken, the specialness of our love was destroyed, and my ability to trust him was smashed into 1,000 pieces. So I know what it's like to feel totally betrayed. I know about the pain and the fear and the sadness and the feeling that you've almost lost your mind. And I know the all-consuming anger. I also know about little things, like the crazy but overpowering impulse I had to confront the other woman. One day, I had the idea of going to the town where she lived and driving up and down the streets until I saw her, even though I didn't know her name or her address or what she looked like. I know about the obsession to squeeze out of my husband every detail of their relationship, even though each of those details was a dagger in my heart, and even though I didn't believe anything he told me anyway. I know about the intense desire I had to control him. I know about how my world shrunk so much that the only things I did were things to make myself feel safe, like staying angry and cold all the time. I know about how his cheating on me made me want to go and find some guy somewhere and to have a revenge affair. I know about the shame of an uncontrolled desire to snoop through his stuff in the hope of finding some painful, damning piece of real evidence I could believe in, like a love letter to her where he laid out every disgusting thing they'd done, rather than just hear the insubstantial assurances he gave me. I know about the feelings of rage that got so bad that I truly felt like killing him. And I also know about this sad, terrible fact. Many of the perfectly natural, normal ways I reacted caused incredible damage to our relationship. I was a bright young therapist then, and you'd think I would have known better. But now, having worked with countless couples and individuals dealing with the pain and damage of broken trust, I realized that in dealing with my husband's betrayal, I made every mistake in the book. Each one of those mistakes prolonged the pain and further damaged us as a couple. I came within inches of destroying a marriage that had been good, and is still good, great, now, many years later. The only way I could have handled things worse would have been to shoot him. These days, I don't judge myself for having handled things so badly. I now know that being betrayed makes everyone blind and crazy. Never did feeling right feel so bad. It was one of the worst periods of my life. There were moments when I was convinced my heart would just shrivel up and die. And there were times when I thought the white-hot anger would engulf me in flames. I was angry at my husband, angry at the woman who would get involved with a married man, and angry at myself for being so stupid, for not being aware of what was going on, for not doing something to prevent it. Could I have prevented it? Could I have been to blame? Could I have been more attentive, less nagging? And there I went down the rabbit hole of self-blame, so common, so likely to make us feel even worse. Blame is never the answer. I hated my husband, but in those moments when I could see beyond my hatred for him, I hated myself. I hated my rage. I hated my judgmentalness. I hated my fear. And I hated how miserable I felt. I mean, why should I have felt so bad? I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. I hadn't acted irresponsibly. He had. He was in the wrong. He'd messed everything up, so it was his job to fix it, right? You may likely be feeling this way too, but this wouldn't be a very long book, or a very good one, if all I had to say was, yeah, that person who hurt you is a no-good sack of crap, and it's up to him to fix things, and until he does, you're damned entitled to sit there feeling mad as hell. Sure, that was my attitude then, but if you're going to trust me, then I've got to tell you the truth. And that means I've got to report that that attitude just didn't work for me, and it hasn't worked for any of the people who've come to me for help. And the thing is that on some level, I knew it at the time, and I bet you do too. So here you are, and there I was, feeling more right than we ever have before, and yet we never felt worse. Never did feeling right feel so bad. I knew there had to be a better way. The trust imperative. Can love survive betrayal? I believe it can. I've seen it. I've lived it. Hell, if betrayal necessarily kills love, then love is too fragile to exist in the real world, because the world is made up of imperfect people who make mistakes. Imperfect people, people we love, will too often hurt us and disappoint us and betray us, which will set up a chain reaction that too often destroys a relationship. Well, if we can't stop ourselves from hurting the people we love and being hurt by them, then we have only one choice. We have to find a way to repair the damage that's done when there's been a betrayal. And let's face it, there's a lot of damage. If the relationship doesn't survive, well, everyone always underestimates how costly breaking up is, financially, emotionally, the toll it takes on the kids. It may not necessarily be permanent, but it's still painful, still destructive, and it still sets you back. But forget the damage to the relationship for a moment. Suppose the relationship survives just fine. Still, you no longer feel safe, and so you feel depressed, anxious, stressed, you lose sleep, there are nightmares, rage. And if these weren't bad enough in themselves, these consequences can have huge negative effects in our lives. They can set us back in our careers. They can damage relationships with friends and family. They can cause us to make bad decisions. And there are health effects to consider as well. Understanding the full extent of the possible damage makes it all the more important that we know how to heal our relationships when there's been a betrayal. Because the damage just doesn't have to be so bad, not by a long shot. You see, and this is the most important point, it's not the betrayal by itself that causes most of the damage. It's the poor way we handle the aftermath. Because of our imperfect nature, because we're imperfect people in imperfect relationships who hurt each other, there will be trust issues in almost every relationship. The betrayals that haunt us aren't only the major ones. Even little leaks can eventually sink a big boat, and even small betrayals, some little lies here, some thoughtless remarks there, can create a corrosive atmosphere of mistrust. Research shows that depending upon how you define trust issues, between 40 and 70% of couples know they have significant problems with trust. At least 90% of couples will have a crisis of trust at some point. And this is where our repair work comes in. We need to restore the trust because I firmly believe that while you can't have people without betrayals, if only little ones, you can't have love without trust. Having trust makes love come alive. Trust isn't just the basis for a relationship, it's the lifeblood that keeps a relationship healthy. The biggest difference trust makes in any relationship, and not just an intimate one, is that you can relax, be open, be yourself. Just think about it. If you can't be yourself because you're not feeling safe, then even if the other person loves you, he's really just loving a stranger, the person you're projecting who's not really you. And so how can you feel loved if it's not the real you who's being loved? And how can you keep on giving love if you're not feeling loved? But when you trust each other so that you can be yourself and be open, the roots of love grow very strong. They grow into your very being. You and I are designed for trust. It is woven into the fabric of our being. The need to trust others, the need to be trusted by others. What makes us successful? Trust is rooted in our social intelligence. It's part of what makes us a successful species. We're successful not just because we're smart, but because we're smart enough to cooperate with each other. I'm not saying we're not suspicious, we are, but think about this. If we need a doctor, most of us will ask a friend for a recommendation, and we'll trust our friend to give us the name of someone good. At most, only 2 or 3% of us will run a background check on him. The rest of us will go with blind trust, take our clothes off, confess the most personal details, and put our lives in that stranger's hands. On the way home from that doctor, we will stop by the supermarket and buy food that we trust isn't tainted. Then we'll swing by to pick our kids up from soccer practice, and the coach who has had charge of our kids is a stranger we trust with what we prize most. We couldn't function without trust. It's all about trust. To realize how essential trust is to us, let's compare ourselves to people who are clinically paranoid. Paranoiacs are convinced that everyone is out to get them. Many have delusions about just how this is happening. The barista who makes her latte, a spy for the government. The person he works with in the office, out to destroy him. Her sister, sleeping with her husband. It's like being caught in a spider web, traps and danger everywhere. You can see how exhausting and crippling mistrust is. Paranoiacs can't form the relationships that enable them to cooperate with anyone, and they exhaust themselves having to live without that cooperation. The trust imperative is so woven into our being that there is actually a trust hormone, oxytocin, whose main function appears to give us the ability to trust. A growing number of experiments with animals and humans show that, contrary to the beliefs of many psychologists and behavioral economists, we not only have the capacity for, but a propensity for, trust across a wide variety of situations. Trust, not mistrust, is our default mode as a species. Just think about what you value in a relationship. Based on my research, I have found that no one really expects perfect intimacy and perfect communication with a perfect partner. We are willing to settle for an imperfect relationship with an imperfect person as long as there's trust. I know that no matter what, he's got my back is the ultimate accolade, and for many of us, the ultimate satisfaction. It really is all about trust. Finding a way home. So here we are. I've just told you that trust is the most important element in a relationship, and you're probably ready to scream or cry, because chances are you don't have any trust left. You're hurt and angry and confused, and you don't know what to do. Back when I was going through that terrible time with my husband, what I really wanted, and what I'm betting you want now, is for someone to lead me out of the terrible place I was in, a place of confused, lonely rage. And beneath that, bleak misery without any end in sight. But beneath that, the sadness of a lost child who just wants to find her way home, the way I felt as a little girl when my parents would take me to Coney Island, and somehow with blinding speed, I'd always manage to get utterly lost. There's just one difference. When I was a kid and I got lost, I still had a home to go back to. But when we feel we can't trust someone anymore, we don't know if that relationship should exist for us anymore. We're anxiously wondering, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I handle all of this? Most of all, we're wondering, can I ever trust this person again? How could I possibly regain trust? And even if I could, would I want this relationship anyway? All these questions have answers, and it's going to be easier to find them than you might think. I will give you everything you need to find your answers so you can see what's best for you and finally wake up from this nightmare. I know right now it feels impossible. Right now this feels as difficult as gluing back together a china teacup someone stomped into 1,000 pieces. But I believe I can help you restore the trust you think you've lost forever. Why do I believe this? Because over many years I have worked with people in all kinds of relationships dealing with all kinds of mistrust, and I have helped them get to a place where they could trust again. I won't pretend I invented all the help offered here. I've learned a lot from people who'd struggled with the aftermath of betrayal on their own. They made a lot of mistakes, but they also hit on some terrific ideas. So this book isn't my telling you what to do. It's my pointing at the success of people just like you and saying, there, do what they did, and you'll come through this better than ever. Taking the path of trust. Today, I'm very glad I hung in there with my husband as we stumbled our way into restoring trust. But I did it the hard way. You don't have to. It's not only that I've learned from my own mistakes, I'm just one person. I've also learned from the mistakes of the countless people who've shared their stories with me and those who've come to me for help. This is the book I desperately needed when I was going through what you're going through now. I know how overwhelmed you feel, and I know how terribly conflicted you feel. You want back the trust you think you lost, but another part of you doesn't think you'll ever feel safe with this person again. Look, I don't know if trusting the person who hurt you makes sense, but as you work through this book, if you conclude that trying to trust again is the right thing to do, I can help you get there. It's going to take some work, and I can't promise it won't be painful at times. But if you want your relationship to work, and part of you must if you're listening to this book, then it is imperative that trust is restored. How broken trust heals. So, how do we do it? How do we heal the trust? Well, let's go back to the betrayal itself for a moment. A betrayal happens when you don't take into account another person who is relying on you. If someone makes a date for lunch with me and then doesn't show up, I'm going to feel betrayed, if only a little. It's a betrayal because I feel that if I'd mattered to him, he wouldn't have blown me off. His not showing up means he didn't take me into account because, why else, I didn't matter enough to him. Anytime we treat someone as if he doesn't matter, he's going to feel some disappointment and betrayal. In the grand scheme of things, a missed lunch date is not such a big deal. He'll say he's sorry and maybe make amends by treating me to lunch when we do get together again. End of problem. But suppose I'm getting married, and the night before the wedding, my fiancé goes out, gets drunk, and winds up having sex with my best friend. That is a big deal. He's really not taken me into account. What could I possibly mean to him for him to do something like that? And that's where people are when there's been a betrayal, and there's a huge mess. First, he didn't take me into account. Then, of course, I'm furious, and even if he recognizes that that's justified, his being assaulted by my anger makes him feel like I'm not taking him into account. After all, he never meant to hurt me. It was all a big mistake, right? The better path. Now we're at a fork in the road. We can turn toward dysfunction, or we can turn toward healing. In the dysfunctional route, things just get worse and worse, often surprisingly quickly, and pretty soon the relationship is blown out of the water, with both partners not taking the other into account. The restoring trust route is the opposite. Yes, it starts with the same hurt and anger, but the mechanism for healing is quite miraculous, as are all mechanisms for healing. Having done something to radically not take the other person into account, the trust healing process consists of finding ways to radically take the other person into account. Instead of escalating impatience, there's growing patience. Instead of anger that goes nowhere, there's real listening and a real sense of feeling seen and heard that goes somewhere new and very important. Instead of inflicting pain, there's an understanding of how to better meet each other's needs. If done right, People can discover how to take each other into.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?